So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path. And that will make all the difference.
Welcome to another episode of Connecting the Dots, where we connect with you inspiring leaders from all over the world. I'm your host, Kay Short, and today we're joined by Janis Vogel. Janis Vogel is a creative coach who inspires people to put themselves out there and share their gifts with the world. Before becoming a coach in 2021, she spent 20 years climbing the ladder of the film industry. Janis is an editor of award-winning documentaries, narrative films, and music videos, and so much more. Born in Germany, but raised on a small island in Martha's Vineyard, she draws on a rich background of realities and identities. She fulfilled her childhood dream of residing in New York City and lived there for 13 years. In 2018, she made Another Human Being and has since worked on She's Gotta Have It by Spike Lee, Z-Way, and Past Lives and Severance. She's also co-founded the Blue Collar Post Collective, a grassroots initiative supporting emerging talent in film. She now lives in Encinitas, California with her daughter, devoting her time to serving clients, wishing to put themselves out there, expand their visions, and take leaps with the power of a coach by their side. I'm so excited to have Janis on the show because we're going to have so much to talk about. So Janis, thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to hang out with you again.
Yes. Why don't you give them, from your perspective, how we met in Encinitas, or was it Oceanside?
Yeah, that was hilarious. I was at Pride with my kiddo, and we were like about to order food, and somebody comes up to me and is like, "Have you ever had strawberry tamales?" And I was just like blindsided, and it was Kathleen.
Yeah.
And yeah, you just like came right up to me and said hello, and we hit it off. It was so nice. It was just what the doctor ordered that day.
It was. I mean, I don't know about y'all. I've never heard of strawberry tamales. I'm from Arizona, so I'm a big fan of tamales. Every Christmas, I hit up my sorority sisters, who it's a Latino-based sorority. I'm like, yo, give me all the tamales. But I never heard of a strawberry one, so I was all like, can anybody give me context how delicious or not delicious this strawberry tamale is? But you didn't get that. You got just, there are other delicious tamales.
Right. I was not helpful, but I was very happy to make a new friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I will. I'm going to highly recommend it, y'all. It tasted like strawberries along with strawberry sauce. So highly recommend, 10 out of 10. I'll get you the name and we'll put them in the comments below after that. But we obviously have so much to talk about. We talked about a little bit off camera, your background in the film industry and in TV and MTV and things of that sort. And I'm just like, okay, let's just press record because I may be getting into some muddy territories in my curiosity in my childhood if I get to know the truth of what was really going on. But also at the same time, I'm really excited just to hear what the work is actually like, but also how now you're transcribing all of that into being a creative coach. But as you know, I love to just go back from the beginning when you were a kiddo, talking about when you were in Germany, things of that sort. Maybe my best guess is maybe military family, or maybe just like we just ended up in Germany, and that's just what it is. So why don't you start us off from there?
Okay, yeah. I was born in Germany in a small town called Heidelberg that like has a castle and is just like a beautiful cobblestone streets and magical place. My father was indeed in the army, and he left and moved back to Alabama when I was 2. And my mom is German, and we lived in Germany until I was 4, at which point my mom decided to move us to the island of Martha's Vineyard. She had family there, and she had gone to high school there a bit, and she just thought it was like going to be this beautiful, safe haven to raise a kid, which in some ways it was, but kids will be kids wherever they are. So I had no shortage of getting in trouble in my high school years.
Okay, wait, where's Martha's Vineyard? I'm not going to pull up a Google map right now. Yes.
Martha's Vineyard is off the coast of Massachusetts. It's Cape Cod. It's Cape Cod and the islands, and there's Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket. Those are 2 islands. Yeah.
Okay, love that. So tell us more about what it was. I'm curious, like, what was it like growing up as a little person there, but I'm also curious if there was anything while growing up that little people were also saying, hey, you're a little different from us. What was like the first difference that folks started pointing out to you when you were younger?
Wow. Yeah.
You're like, get me off this call right now. I don't want I
Oh,
saw.
dive right into my childhood trauma already. Um, you know, honestly, it is a predominantly white community. My stepfather, since I was 9, is Native, and so
Mm,
I grew up in his family as sort of an honorary member of the tribe, the
mm,
Wampanoag tribe of Aquinnah, which is in Massachusetts and Connecticut area.
wow.
So I had that to like root me into a minority experience, and like
Mm,
my cousin was my best friend, and we both had like long curly hair, and we just braided each other's hair, and that was like the fibers that ground me to this
yeah.
day in my childhood.
Mm, wow.
But it is a predominantly white community, and there's a lot of pressure. I'm first generation American in some ways, and then I'm like formerly enslaved history on the other side. So it's a really interesting uh
Mm-hmm.
stew of things to navigate as a kid.
Mm,
And the memory that comes up is this really tragic memory where I was in preschool, and this little boy was like, "You're pretty." And I was 4 years old, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm pretty." And then he was
mm.
like, "Pretty ugly." And I like dropped
Oh,
down, like it crashed me down, and it was just like the up and the down. And something about that experience just like, I mean, it stayed with me in this way that I like have so much compassion for my little inner child.
yeah.
Um, but it just kind of like illuminates that like striving and wanting to fit in, and that wanting to be normal and seen as beautiful in a
Mm,
certain in wherever you're living. And when that is like inaccessible, I was raised sort of in that post-racial way of like that tolerance, and like everyone is unique and beautiful. And my
mm,
mom gave me a lot of like sense of an inner beauty. And when I looked at myself, I saw beautiful. And when I went to school, I wasn't getting those messages. So there was this like disparity of experiences that was like, I thank God I have the contrast, and it wasn't just the sort of negative experience. But yeah, it was like a painful way to grow up, and it was just such a relief to, at a young age, I wanted to move to New York City. I visited, I had a family there, and I already felt like the city and the comfort of just the pace of life and the many different things you see there and the many different cultures. I was always grateful to like talk about the melting pot and learn about
mm,
different cultures in elementary school. But
mm,
the first time I actually experienced that melting pot was not on Martha's Vineyard, but in New York City. And I couldn't wait to move there. And I finally did after college. And yeah, those 13 years, like I got to just be beautiful every day, and just like, just be a
mm.
person, just be human. I just so strongly believe that everyone is beautiful and humans are miracles, and it's nice to just get to live in a place that makes that possible for
Yeah,
people.
yeah. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that moment. I feel like, which I'm sure wasn't easy. And man, that joke is not a nice joke, you know?
Yeah, he's just like, I get to practice this joke. This is awesome. I heard this on TV, and
Yeah.
Animaniacs, that's my generation, whatever.
Hmm. Yeah. And it's just like for me it's always such a deep curiosity. I don't know why. I can't I To be fully transparent, like I think about my interviewing style and I think about what I get into, and it's just like I can't help but my being is just so curious of what we were like when we were younger, because I feel like it plays into so much of the work that we pursue, probably initially what the world's telling us we should probably pursue or whatever the case may be. But just like I'm always so curious of like when one of those moments that really have imparted in our hearts so that it brings us back to the work that we truly find ourselves love doing in the seasons that we're in. So that's why it's like, I tell folks, I'm like, yeah, let's challenge by choice, share what you want to share, but also I'm like, can't just get I can't go through the cliff notes of someone's life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My body just is like, wait a second. I love it. What you just did, you're like, let's fast forward to after college. I was like, yeah, but like everyone talks about that. Everyone talks
Yeah.
about the highlight reels and the things
Right.
that they've accomplished. But I'm just like, there's things in here that I feel like are just being remissed. And I feel like if we were truly sitting around the campfire, which this is the modern day campfire, would you just give your grandchildren the highlight reel?
No, I
Is
would
that
want, I want my child to know everything about me, and I want her to not have to be shocked that her childhood had an impact on her.
mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
in college, after college, actually, after grad school, even in my mid-20s, I really started therapy in a more serious way. And I my therapy was like cognitive behavioral therapy. So it was like, what are your thoughts? What are your behaviors? What are your feelings? Let's just keep working on shifting those. And it was very much dealing with the present. And that style of therapy very much deals with the present moving forward. And so I wasn't really aware that I had any childhood
Yeah.
trauma
Mm-hmm.
until much later after having my own child. And so now going back into these memories, and this is like
Mm-hmm.
work I do with my clients as well, like going back to those formative memories and having the opportunity to like truly feel what that felt like in that moment, to have that joke said to me, and like going as my adult self into that memory and like hugging my 4-year-old self and being like, that is not true. You are so beautiful. Like, let's get out of here. There's just
Mm-hmm.
this like, yeah, I have that that it's so powerful to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And I just never knew that that was part of the work until
Mm.
so much later in life. So, um, you know, I lost my father when I was 2, and I just thought, cool. I don't have any daddy issues. Can you believe it? Like,
Mm.
but what I didn't realize was that they just manifested in a different way. Like I became very armored and very perfectionist and very like, I am going
Mm-hmm.
to put on this mask that everything is going well, and I was very competitive in school, and I just did all the things I had to do to succeed and not have, any connection with um,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
past. I was like, this cannot possibly hold me back. But
Mm.
later in life, I realized that that armor like didn't allow me to connect with others as my authentic self. It didn't allow me to be my true self as a parent, and I had to like
Mm.
become more vulnerable, and I had to realize that like, oh, my daddy issues are the fact that I prepare
Hmm.
to be abandoned. I'm like, I got this. Like, go. So it's just like, yeah, our childhoods are so rich with information, and it's not about dredging up the pain. It's about like getting curious and then responding as you would like to have been responded to,
Mm-hmm.
rewriting the story, right?
Yeah. Now that you have a little one, you said 5 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
So
around, which
cool
is
that you've
crazy.
met her.
Yeah, I was all like, I don't know how she was feeling that day, but I was like, "Yay,
Yeah, she
you're
gets very
dropping."
overwhelmed at
Yeah.
like big events. We met at Pride and she was like, what is going on? But she loved getting all of the rainbow gear and like,
Yes,
you
I
know.
love that. I love that. So I'm curious if, gosh, my curiosity can go one or two ways. Explain to me, who do you feel like you were when you were that little person on the playground? And then connected to, do you think that you would be friends with your kiddo? If you, since you two are around the same age right now, just kind of curious.
Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah, okay. So tell me us
Yeah.
about who little Janice was, and then tell us a little bit more about your little one and see how that two would work together.
Yeah. I'll start with my kid and then I'll try to remember what I was like. But yeah,
Mhm.
my kid is just like fun loving, adventurous, like she's very, very observant and very like detail oriented. She loves to draw. She loves to do all the artistic things. Like she wants to be Frida Kahlo. I'm so grateful because sometimes she wants to, play like Frozen and all these other things. And I'm like, well, I try not to, burst her bubble too much, but the Frida Kahlo wishes are my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when I was a kid, I was like very silly, but also kind of observant and shy in certain settings. I mean, I went to preschool not knowing a bit of English. I
Mm.
spoke only German, so it took me some time to learn English. It went quickly. I don't remember that much of that experience, but um, it was my life has been like a fake it till you make it kind of
Mm.
life.
Hmm.
And I've like really always appreciated that as a superpower
Hmm.
until it was like time to like stop. And then I was like, wait, how do I stop faking it? I need to like
Hmm.
be my full self in order to like parent, in order to take care of myself, in order to like choose partners. Like I had to actually stop pretending. So I would totally be friends with my kid if we were both kids. We would just be like doing art projects and dress up and silly, you know, doing silly stuff, dancing, gymnastics, all the things.
Is Would you say that ever since you became a parent, that's when you said that you had to stop baking it and be more authentic?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
What
was like,
happened there?
um, well, I was completely thrown off guard when I had a kid. I thought like everybody does it, so it must be easy. And like everybody has kids, so society must be organized to support you. And like I was so naive. I had not really asked anybody any questions. I honestly just thought like mother's instinct was going to kick in and I was going to know how to take care of a newborn. I'm so glad you're laughing and you understand the greatly mistaken mindset that I
Well,
had.
I probably, because if I don't know what's gonna happen, but I probably would be have done it the same way. So that's why please share with me that this
Mm,
is maybe not the best
yeah.
way to do. You should
No.
probably get some support.
Right.
So
Yeah.
continue.
Support is the most important thing. And it's not a time to be like, oh, I was in this space where I was like being encouraged to need as little as possible. Just by work, by society, in my relationship at the time, it was like, how little can you need? Because we will love you more if you um need less. So please, like,
While pregnant.
yeah, while pregnant, while having a
Continue.
newborn. And so that was the time to like really like get a lot more support.
Hmm.
I was like holding my baby and she was just crying and I had no idea what to do. I was literally like on YouTube, like how to take care of a newborn. On moms groups, like how do you get down the stairs? Like how do you in the city, like in the winter?
Wow.
Um, just these little tiny questions, and then they have like gargantuan repercussions on your ability to move through life with a baby. I just had no idea.
Mm.
So I was holding my child. I did not know how to get her to stop crying. Um, and I couldn't figure it out. And part of it is just surrendering to not knowing. They can't verbally speak but there's this like inadequacy that can come in when you just aren't able to soothe your own child. I'm
Mm.
like, what's wrong with me? So I'm reading
Mm.
this book and it's like, your child can feel your nervous system through their nervous system. And
Mm.
it was like this picture of like the baby like a circles connecting the baby and the mother. And I was like, oh my gosh, you mean that she's not gonna calm down until I calm down? And I'm like freaking out 24/7 right
Mm,
now. And it
mm,
was this, it was a shocking moment because I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to work on myself in this time where
mm,
I am completely brand new. I'm like
mm,
reborn myself, and I need so much help and support, and I need to learn how to regulate my nervous system so that
mm.
my child can feel safe and at ease.
Yeah.
Um, it was like, oh, I can't fake it anymore. I can't just like, I always came off as cool, calm, and collected. People would always, if it was like, let's write down one nice thing about each other, it was like in the eighth grade newspaper, it was like the stately Janis Vogel. So I always knew how to perform. I danced on stage, I did theater, I always knew how. Like if somebody, I was the kid in high school who would like pretend to be a mom on the phone and be like, "We're here, everything is fine. The kids are just gonna be in the basement." Like, and so I have that ability, but it doesn't work as a parent. It
Oh.
it doesn't. My kid can see straight through me to this day. She's like, I don't like your voice. I'm like, oh, you can just tell that I'm like trying to play mom right now. I have to like embody the whole thing. Whatever I am, I have to be the whole thing. And I want her to be her whole self. I don't want her to spend 30 years faking it till she makes it. I don't want her to
Mm.
spend 30 years like being like, "Oh, you want me to dress like this? Okay, I can do that." And like, "Oh, you want me to fit into this box? Like, I can do that. Watch. Look at me. Can you everybody pop in yet? Like I'm a pretzel." Um, so I just yeah, it was a huge moment of transition in my life. Um and just a huge change of mindset, and I had to devote like all of my energy and resources to shifting my way of thinking, my way of living, my connection with myself, my respect for my own needs. Like, oh, these my needs are my needs, and I can like negotiate when and how they're going to get met, but they aren't going to go away. If I try to suppress them, they will just come out in very inconvenient ways.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
that learning was just uh, really incredible. And, it was a beautiful gift to go through such a challenging time because it really informed all of my choices since then.
Yeah. I've always had this image of moms, folks who become parents, those who give life. Somehow a cape grows around y'all's neck, an invisible cape grows around the neck. And whether you're with your kiddo or not, the cape can be felt and seen, maybe not seen, but you can feel it and see it,
Oh,
that it's there. I'm just curious, do you feel like
I love
that you
that.
are growing an invisible cape? The cape grew in the first 2 years, just kind of
Yeah.
that concept in general. I only say that because it's more probably an admiration. I'm like, would I ever grow a cape? Then I hear stories like this. I think I'm just gonna stick to being the cool auntie and the babysitter or whatever the case may be. I think you all need support in one way or another. So yeah. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely don't share this to like have a cautionary tale. It's like definitely there's no joke that it takes a village, and I thought that meant like eventually get a babysitter, but it actually means like mother the mother until the mother can fully mother the child. Like there's a circle of life that's necessary for things to be
Mm,
regenerative. It's just yeah, but I definitely love that visual, and like thank you for knowing that. And mostly like I I do feel this superpower of not giving a shit what other people think about me anymore. And like not being embarrassed by feelings and emotions, and like not being embarrassed of my child's feelings and emotions. Like I don't have time to waste on embarrassment. And my mission in life is for people to get that sense of power to be their full selves before they have a kid, whether they have kids or not. Like, I want that to happen for people earlier because we
Yeah.
have it as kids. We come out of the womb loving ourselves, loving others, like fully like human and ready to just be whoever we are. And then we learn like
Mm.
tile by tile what is expected of us, what gets us more love, what gets us applause. And we subconsciously and subconsciously like shift our beings to conform to what keeps us safe. And so that's not to shame us for our coping mechanisms. That's to actually say, like, thank you. Thank you for thinking you needed to fake it for so long. Like, thank you for trying to conform so you could be safe. Like, how wise are
Mm.
we as kids to do what we have to do to feel safe? So, thank you for that. And now, like, let's build our own safety and let's build our own space where we can fully be ourselves and we can say, like, you know what, you don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah. How is that translating in raising your kiddo? Obviously, just turned 5, your first moment of like, what just happened in the world with this not nice comment at 4, right? So I'm just curious of how you're taking your childhood experiences, because I was going to ask to some extent, like, how early do you start? Because it literally can happen. You say we come out of the womb, but right when you start interacting with other kiddos and parents and who've done or done not do the work, so just like, yeah,
Yeah.
how are you navigating your own stuff while also raising your daughter and helping employ these lessons and practices so that maybe not 30 years later
Right.
we can start
Right.
having these conversations.
Yeah, thank you for asking that. It's constantly on my mind, and it's not a perfect process. It's similar to like healing. It's not linear. It's not
Mm-hmm.
easy. It's messy, and it requires just being in the mess with someone. Like, she comes home and she's like, someone told me that I have boy skin. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like sexist and racist. And like, okay, another 4-year-old told you that. So, like, compassion for that person and their parent. And like, she's a brown kid in a predominantly white school. And I just want to shelter her from all of it. There's part of me that just wants her to never experience the pain that I went through. Um, and there's, my own mother who wanted to shelter me from the pain that she went through, and that couldn't shelter me from the pain that I was going through as like the Black child of a white mother. Like, just so many things to navigate. So I can only do my best, but what I truly aspire to is like full transparency, like that she can come home and tell me that that happened. That's the most important thing, that she knows she's safe to share with me when something doesn't quite feel right, that she hears.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can talk about it. Like, there's no such thing as boy skin, and like there's no such thing as like a, like I'm constantly like loosening the definitions of gender for her. And like I she'll usually be like, no, like she'll resist my, no, there's boys and there's girls, and she'll resist what I'm saying because it's different than what she's getting out there. And then like weeks later I asked her like, oh, tell me about your stuffy. And she's like, it's they them. And I'm like,
Oh,
yes. And it's like such a win when that happens, that I have realized that the things that she resists and the things she argues with me about are things that are confusing for her, that she's slowly integrating the process of like, what I'm hearing from my mom is different than what I'm hearing out in the world. But ultimately I win.
love
So
that.
I just trust in the process and like model I just have to trust in modeling what I believe in, and know that it's not always going to be what she reflects back to me. You know, she's talking about LOL dolls and fake nails and fake hair. Like, she knows the things that are at 5. She knows like, what, a certain type of feminine that she's drawn to. It's just very interesting. Every child is different, but I'm I'm like wanting to celebrate her desires to express herself in certain ways, and also, you know, also protect her. So it's a dance, and it does require a cape for sure. And it requires like parenting for what she needs and what she's saying, and not for what I needed as a child. Like,
Mm.
so
Mm.
it's very interesting.
I can only imagine. I will say, from raised as an only child, like, and to have a parent that was just present, is already so huge, you know? So I hope that like you can like celebrate that and know that like as you're unraveling those things with her, like I just think about my upbringing. I had Imagine I have questions, you know, and it's like I didn't have a present parent to unravel those things with me. So that's why I think my passion of collecting stories of people is trying to unravel humanity for myself and being like, I'm just trying to make sense of the world, you know? So like kudos for you for just like being available and being willing to be in the messy parts of all of that. I could only imagine what's happening, you know, as a young person nowadays.
Yeah.
And I think I'm curious, actually, speaking of, you know, you're saying, you know, having these conversations of unraveling gender and like, and recognizing that that's also now almost acceptable being in Southern California. It's in our curriculum. Like, what are your just like thoughts about like what is in the curriculum, what's not in the curriculum, and like kind of what's happening as you're raising a child in the world today?
Yeah, I want my child to be exposed to the breadth of human experience and the breadth of human emotion, and know that all of those things are acceptable and to be celebrated. And I, it's easy. There's As a parent, it's quite overwhelming to, I'm a Black, queer, single mom. Like, I've
Mm-hmm.
got a lot of work to do in terms of like just keeping up the daily life. And I could easily just sort of autopilot and be like, she's at school, they've got it. But it's so important for us to be a part of the daily life that happens at school. And um, Zima was coming home and saying, like, pink is for boys and blues, or pink is for girls and blues for boys. And I was like arguing with her nicely for weeks. And then I wrote a little song about it. And
Mm.
wrote to the teachers, and I was like, she's coming home and saying this, and I just really want to expand on this, so that at 3 years old, they do not need to ever in life be limited to those stereotypes. But it was just really concerning because I chose the most liberal possible school I could find, where they're playing outside in the dirt all day, and it's an investment in that early age that you know that I chose to make. And you better be sure I want there to be representation and inclusion and
Mm.
diversity in the curriculum. And so I wrote this song and I sent it to the teacher, and they like played the song for the kids. And um, that was such a beautiful moment, because it showed Zima that my voice is valid at school,
Mm.
and that all the kids could sing that song and celebrate that song together. Um,
Mm.
it was like, blue is the color of the ocean, and just like blue is for everyone. And um, I only wrote it about the color blue so far, but someday, in all my spare time, I'd like to do all the colors of the rainbow.
Yes.
But, these things are really important to me, and it's been a beautiful process to just recognize my own values and how important these things are to me, and like come into my own queerness in that way more deeply too. Like, oh, this
Mm.
isn't just randomly important to me. This is like, this is me,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah.
feel represented at her school.
Yeah. Speaking of queerness, when did that start coming for you? Just I mean,
Yeah. I
I
mean,
love I love talking to folks who are older. I love talking to elders in general and folks who are older, but specifically, I've been having an affinity towards folks like that are coming on the 50 mark and just late 40s because you all lived during the time of the times. And so to witness it as it's happening with technology and music and culture and things of that sort, I'm just like, oh, I need to tap in into what those experiences were like. And so, of course, like also just being the adults of having these conversations and having a say in the educational system and y'all are just at a very like unique point in humanity, and it's just so fascinating to me. So that's why I'm just like, okay, yes, we shall talk about these things, but of course,
yeah.
you also being a part of it and contributing to it, and now there's so much for it. So I just get so excited talking to folks that just have been there, done that, but are also like gonna go do that, gonna keep doing it, and also come back around. So
Yeah.
yeah, talk to us about queerness and also just attending Pride yesterday and what you think of all this, what's going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, it's wild how coming out can be a very lonely road into a very big community, into a
Mm.
very tight-knit community.
Mm-hmm.
So you both have like the isolation of like having to figure it out for yourself, and then you have like the ultimate nest and
Mm.
space to be your full self. Um, so yeah, it's also funny to like retroactively go back into childhood and like realize you were a queer kid all along, but there was no language for that.
Yeah.
You know, like I had a lesbian flute teacher for like 8 years, and all I was told was like they live together because they really enjoy each other and they're good friends. I had this opportunity to like learn that people can love anybody, and that people are gay and people are queer and people are all sorts of whatever they want to be. And I I was limited at that time. Um, but and that's a privilege too, to solely be blind and limited and not to be um in danger.
Mm.
So, there's always like silver linings and shitty linings. That's what I like.
Mm.
Um, so I went to Wellesley College, an all girls school, all women. Um,
Wait. Wesley College, and we don't know that we're queer yet at this moment.
no,
Just kind of
not
percolating in the
really. I was like,
background.
Don't label me. That's that, you know what I mean?
Okay.
I was like, I shall not be labeled. That was my whole deal. So
Mhm.
funny. Um, and then I was like really shocked by like my crushes on girls were just like so intense, and I was like, oh, this has got to be wrong because this is just like too intense. Like I was paralyzed. I had a crush on this person. I'm tempted to like say their name like it's like a Craigslist missed connections podcast. um they will remain anonymous, but they like came into my dorm room and we sat like side by side, and I just sat there completely silent, just like did not know what to do or how to talk at all. Was so nervous, and then it didn't work out because
Because you
because I
didn't
was a
talk.
shell. Yeah, I was a shell of a human. I didn't know how to fake it in this realm. I knew how to like be a sexy straight girl. Like I knew how to
Mm.
walk that walk and dance that dance to a degree,
Mm-hmm.
to what I was shown and learned in the media and all of that. But I just did not know what to do in this realm. And which is not really just be yourself, right? Just give of yourself and receive and be curious and be interested and be human.
Yeah.
That wasn't something I I understood yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I I kind of went like back in the closet. I actually shaved my head for the first time at my college graduation in like 2004.
Mm-hmm.
Um and yeah, I think I was doing all these things to try to be seen and try to see myself, but it wasn't quite clear to me yet. And then when I was 25, I um fell in love with a woman for the first time, um and at that age there was kind of this like, you're a late bloomer. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I'm a late bloomer. I haven't been out since elementary or high school, so I'm like not officially in the club. And like I kind of, yeah, had this stigma that I wasn't like real enough because I was 25. And I can't believe that now, because that was like 20, whatever age you come out is real. And there's no such thing as a late bloomer in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Come to think of it, I'm just realizing that now. Like, I feel like that term kind of is a sort of a shame driven term, but if you can own it without shame, then that's fine too. But I kind of shamed myself for not being like out my whole life and not going through that experience that my partner had gone through, of like being so brave and different in elementary school and high school. Like, I'm just very impressed by that. And um yeah, it's everybody has a different experience. And I am, um I'd say, yeah, in this parenting journey, it's really, um really motivated me or inspired me to like re-engage fully with my queerness and be all the things that I am.
Yeah.
um I want my child to know me. I want to be my full self. And yeah, so
Tell us more about this, your late bloomer realizations. Only because, gosh, I don't know, but just my observation, I don't even know if they're blooming right now. You know what I mean? Like it's like exactly what you're talking about fake nails already. I was like, I didn't get that conversation until maybe like high school, you know? So I'm just kind of thinking about young people, thinking about the fastness of our lives right now and what we're seeing and feeling like we're all late to something, apparently. You know what I mean? So yeah, I would love for you to just expand on that, because I feel like you're saying at 25 at that time, that's when maybe that term was coming around. But man, I could feel like it's showing up for a lot of people nowadays as we're just trying to urgently rush to something that we don't really know what we're rushing towards. So
yeah,
expand
yeah.
on that.
And what comes to mind is just like healing journeys. I really initiated my healing journey in a serious way 5 years ago. And so much of what that has entailed is like moving away from black and white thinking and allowing for shades of gray.
Mm.
And that those shades of gray can like relate to identities, can relate to time. And it's just so important to find curiosity. And in order to be curious, you need to feel safe. And so
Mm.
like finding ways to reduce stress and like find that sense of safety to explore and to be curious and to like this person one day and like that person another day. And like there's no rules.
Mm.
The more variety you can allow yourself in exploration, as you see, when you're inspired to explore, um and getting away from that, like, well, what is my great grandmother going to think, and what is my aunt Susan going to think, and what is my boss going to think. And um yeah, it's been a beautiful process to like realize that the world doesn't end when you slow down,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
allow yourself to engage in the things that are knocking on your intuition, right? because
Mm-hmm.
intuition and attraction, these are all like quiet whispers sometimes. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's some of the thoughts that came to mind with that.
Yeah, you were saying just the concept of a late bloomer, and you're saying like, oh, at 25 I felt that way, and that you were saying that maybe it has more of a shameful connotation to it. So, do you feel like you expanded on that?
I mean, I want to just talk to my 25-year-old self and be like, oh my God, you were not a late bloomer. You were so brave and so cool and
Mm-hmm.
so in love and so like happy in that moment. Um, like you didn't need to have that extra chip on your shoulder or nagging in your ear that you weren't enough in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we have these things that like disconnect us from other humans or like make us think that we need to be on the outside of a circle and I think belonging is a huge part of the human experience. That's one of the two things we want the first from when we're born. We want to belong, and through belonging we get everything else. We are taken care of, we are nourished, we are loved because we belong.
Mm-hmm.
And so those I've been realizing that to a degree belonging is a choice. If we are lucky enough to um, find the people that we want to belong to, then we can choose them and we can insert ourselves, and I think that's like part of like what I talk about in terms of putting yourself out there
Mm-hmm.
as like, yeah, you have to you have to insert yourself and give yourself permission to be a part of something in order to have that belonging. I guess it relates to always wanting to be chosen. And if I'm not chosen, then I'm not, I can't be a part of it. Like if somebody, doesn't choose me to be their partner, then I'm less valid in some way. So flipping a little bit of that into like, well, wait, what do I want? Who
Mm.
do I choose? Um, and going for that
Yeah.
is just really awesome. And in some ways I did that when I was 25. And so having that pride
Mm-hmm.
is a beautiful thing.
I love that
Sort of rewrite that late bloomer story, right?
that part. Mm.
Because I'm like reblooming in a different way now. And I feel like everybody's going through cycles of composting and blooming,
Mm-hmm.
right? You
Mm-hmm.
talked about coming into your 30s now
Mm-hmm.
and rewriting the stories again. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned this childhood dream of living in New York City. Was there a sense of belonging you felt like that you would feel there in New York City, or what was the seed that was planted in your heart that you felt that New York City would be a place you'd want to stay for a long time?
Yeah. Well, I think kids are so wise. I'll start by saying, like, I um did so many things that kept me out of harm's way and made my life richer and more beautiful as a child that were just like subconscious. I spent most days after school dancing. I spent a lot of time with friends at their houses, and um, I did so many things to protect myself and make life good. And I just had this desire to move to New York City. I was just obsessed with it. I have no idea why. It wasn't like, oh, somebody told me that Black people have a really great time in New York City. I had no idea. That came much later. That came much later. I was 12 when I was like really obsessed with moving to New York City. I wanted to like go to the School of Performing Arts in New York City. Yeah, I just had this feeling, and I think children's instincts are so on point.
Hmm.
And later in life we like can rationalize everything and justify everything, and we're like strategizing and getting back to that, like, what do you really want? Like, what do
Mm.
you just want is so, so important. And I just wanted to live in New York City, and I was right. It was the place where made friends as an adult for the first time, more than
Mm.
in college. Um, yeah, I had like a beautiful community there and still do, you know? It's like my family, both by blood and by spirit, um, are in New York City. So yeah, New York is the
I would
way.
love to tap in on that and for my own personal journey, just because you were probably, when I met you over in Oceanside, you were probably the first or second just conversation about Brooklyn. And I was like, okay, since then, since then, Janice, at least 8 other interactions of either Brooklyn or New York. And I'm just like, can I help you?
Mhm.
How can I be of service to you? You know what I mean? Because I was not having any interactions with New York. I didn't have this 12-year-old dream that there's something in New York, there's something in the water. I don't know what's in the water, you tell me. But so to now finally go visit next week for the first time, I would love to just talk to you as a friend and be like, okay, is it
Yeah,
all that it's cracked up to be? But also, on the flip side of the coin, just be like, well, also don't drink the water. I don't know, you know? So I'd love to tap in on that just so I can document this for future reference, because who knows
yeah,
where life will take us.
totally. Well, I will say that I think one of the most beautiful results of coaching, which is what I primarily do now, is like you put something out in conversation and it gets the wheels turning.
Hmm.
Um, like the power of conversation and the power of using your voice. It's like we think that speaking is optional, but it's not. It's so, so
Hmm.
important, so valid. So I am not surprised that New York City is just like manifesting itself for you in your life since our conversation. Um, yeah,
I know
it has
nothing
to.
about New York. I just want you to know that's why I'm just like,
Yeah.
what are you all talking about? Oh, that's what I'm saying. Like, can I help you? Why
Yeah.
am I literally meeting folks only from New York lately? It's crazy.
hmm it is the safest drinking water, I think, of any like American city. I'm pretty
Whoa.
sure. Yeah. So,
I
unless something's changed, you can drink the water. And all this like getting water at the water store in California is like completely new to me. Um, I now live in Encinitas, California, on the
Mhm.
coast, and it's beautiful. Small, but I love it in different
Mhm.
ways than New York City. Yeah, New York City is just like you can be anybody in New York City and you can meet anybody in New York City. You just constant surprise. It's just, you know, there's just culture. You're just in culture,
Mm.
in the fibers of what is culturally happening in this country. Like,
Mm.
I had no idea how influential, like the billboards and just knowing what was going on and being around the people who are making art and talking about art and just going to the MoMA and going to the Met and um it's you're just in it. You're just
Mm.
in something.
Mm.
And when you need like peace and slowness, that gets challenging. But you know, I love having like an apartment in New York City that's like a haven away from the cacophony of it all.
Mm.
It feels just so good to have a little cozy bubble inside this wild, wild city that never sleeps. You can
Now that you
truly
lived on,
find your people no matter who you are.
mm, now that you lived on both coasts, is the stereotypes true? I don't know. I just hear
Yes.
things. So tell us
Yes.
more what you have observed and experienced.
Yes. I mean, the East Coast, the weather is constantly changing. Like, there's actually something to talk about when it comes to the
Okay.
weather. Like, it's just like you just never know. It's constantly changing. There's storms. It goes from the cold winters to like a moment of true comfort in like October and April, and then it's just like hot, humid summer. It's like you're always needing to survive the
Mm.
weather. And like, climate change is making that a lot um more the case. Um so that's just to say that people are survivors, and people are like
Mm.
going through it constantly. So
Mm.
the hustle and the grind, and just the sheer culture of hard work. I get why that's so necessary on the East Coast,
Mm.
and why it's so, yeah, why that's stereotypical of New York City to be like hustle and grind.
Mm.
More so than on the West Coast, where there's a little more devotion to comfortable living, a little, then it's very hard in different ways. I mean, I just think it's really, there's hard things about living anywhere right now
Yeah.
in this world. It's such a challenging time. And there's one thing I want to say to anyone in the world. It's that, like, if you're having a hard time right now, you're not alone.
Mm.
Like, tell people, be with people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I guess the West Coast has that reputation for being a little more isolating.
Mm.
It's a little bit harder to find your people in your community, but it requires a little bit more like putting yourself out there, I'd say. But that's what we do, right?
Yeah.
And you go to Pride, you meet people, I do love just like it's comfortable here in San Diego. It's
Mm.
very comfortable.
Mm.
Um, just yeah, I came here because we wanted to find the easiest and most peaceful place to raise a kid, and just sort of pointed to it on a map. I moved out here in 2022, sight unseen,
Hmm.
California.
Wow.
Um, I had been in LA a bunch, and I'd been in the Bay a lot, um, but I had never been to San Diego. And here we are.
And here we are in a whole new chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before we get to this chapter, my younger self would remiss if I did not go into all of your experience in the film industry and just bursting a couple of my bubbles, maybe, which is
Yeah.
fine, or also just magnifying the ones um, that I've always been a fan of. So tell us what it was like, being in the film industry. You said that I'm assuming it was maybe in New York, and then just like
Mhm.
doing all this cool work. Like, what was guiding you to be in that space and place, and like what was your favorite parts about it?
Yeah. I was like a photography nerd in high school. And almost all of my life, my father was a photographer, and it was kind of like my little connection to him. I was like,
Mm.
I'm a photographer's child, so that's just like in my blood. I loved things being like in my blood. Um,
Mm.
I did like, yeah. So I was a photographer, and I wanted to become a cinematographer. Um, I went and saw Billy Elliot, that ballet movie,
Mm.
um, in high school, and afterwards I was like crying because it was such a beautifully shot film, and it was the first time that I had watched the credits and seen director of photography on the screen, and I was like, director of photography,
Mm.
that's something I want to do. Um, and I went to college and did a bit of photography there, but I thought I was so good that I didn't need photography classes. So I just like used the darkroom and did my own thing.
Of course.
Um, and now I've learned the humility to just like, oh, take the class again, and like beginner's mindset. And if you already think you know something, then get back in line, like
Mm.
start start over and hone your craft. It's okay to do that. I did media studies in college, and then I did not know what to do after college, so I just went straight back into school for film production in New York City. I went to City College of New York and studied to be a DP, the director of photography, and then I also directed a film and was part of the editing process for my own film. I had loved editing, but I just thought that work was supposed to be something that was like hard and scary. So editing was never on the table for me until much later. I after college, I did not become a director of photography. I literally went to some interviews like at UCLA and other colleges where they were like, you can't be a DP because you're like, how are you going to carry all that equipment? And like, it's really hard for women. And I just got all of these messages that I actually took to heart, unfortunately. Um, and I was like, I guess this isn't for me because they say it's not for me. I'm not chosen. I'm not being chosen to do this. Um, so I ended up producing, and I ended up working on MTV's 16 and Pregnant.
Gotcha.
Yeah, for quite a while, but I was getting promoted and I did not want to go out into the field and do that work. I was like, that was like a big hell no for me.
Yeah.
And so it was really scary to turn down that opportunity to produce this show on a higher level. So I ended up shooting on the show. So I got my little like DP experience. I did not like being called up at any given time and being sent to like Wyoming and South Dakota by myself to like shoot kids and wrangle kids and microphones and equipment all alone. That was not glamorous to me. That was not Billy Elliot. So I ended up like thinking about going back to photography and like having that quiet, peaceful solo mission kind of job. But in the meantime, I started editing music videos, and I really fell in love with editing music videos. And from there, I was like, "Ooh, I could edit." And I went back to my boss, who had allowed me to be a producer and a DP on the show, and I was like, "I want to edit now." And she was like, "Well, you know Avid, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." Yes, no, but I can wait till I make it, like I always do. And I did. And so I started editing Teen Mom 2, actually. But and from there, I started an organization called the Blue Collar Post Collective, which is supports emerging talent in film, including myself. And I started that with my queer fan, Katie Hinson, and we made this amazing organization that's still up and running today with like 30,000 members on Facebook, like super supportive environment. It was like my first lesson in the fact that when the people at the top have great values, the organization is going to have great values, and it's going to be yeah, a beautiful, diverse place when the people at the top want that. It's just about opening the doors, and then you get a beautiful community. So in a very competitive industry, that is revolutionary. I just have always believed in community over competition, and sort of building that community helped me get my foot in the door in better films. And I started working as an assistant editor on like big narrative films. Most recently, I edited Z-Way for Showtime, which is a revolutionary television series. And I worked on Past Lives, which got an Oscar nomination, and I'm currently assistant editing on Severance for Apple TV. at the same time as I run my coaching business and take care of my kiddo and
Mhm.
myself.
Yeah.
Um, so that's my film story. And, film is an art form and it gets my creative juices flowing. I love that part of it, but it's also um usually requires about 10 to 12 hours a day. And I miss out on my kid big time, and that's been really painful.
Mm.
Um, and so I have long periods where I have time off, and I in that time off I've been starting my coaching business a few years ago. And yeah, I'm a creative coach, so um, I use my creativity um, to help people
Yeah.
put themselves out there in many
I love
ways,
that.
on social media, in connecting with the people they want to connect with. And yeah, I made a signature program called Pivot, which is a 12-week program that is a healing journey that also helps people go from like dreading putting themselves out there to wanting to put themselves out there.
Mm.
Um, I hear that a lot. Like, I just have to put myself out there. And when I think about that phrase, it's like starts with just, and
Mm.
that makes it seem like it's simple,
Mm.
which it's not.
Mm.
There's obviously something blocking you from doing that. And then it's like you have to put yourself like up on a cliff's edge where everyone is watching and laughing at you or something. So
Mm.
there's this like putting, and that's challenging. And then it's like yourself. Well, who are you?
Mm.
So you have to know who you are to put yourself out there. And oftentimes you're talking about a time of great transition, and it's just the time where you want to like hide and close up, and you have to put yourself out there. And it's this um tension, right?
Mhm.
And out there in the great wilderness, like on a hilltop in the wind by yourself.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I just noticed that the great majority of my clients, like, I hold their hands as they gain the confidence to put themselves out there. So I'm kind of a confidence coach and a relationship coach for your relationship with yourself.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
When did the coaching start pinging for you that that's what you wanted to transition into?
Well, when I had my kid and I just like was like, oh, my childhood was traumatic. I had no idea. And
Mm.
now I want to break the cycle. And I'm going to learn how to do that on the job. Um,
Mhm.
I I had a friend who was posting a lot of things about boundaries and limiting beliefs. And I was like, ooh, this is exactly what I'm like reading about and thinking about. And it turned out she was going through a coaching certification program. And so I signed up for the same program. Like, I'm so lucky that I intersected with her. Because that, yeah, was life changing, and it gave me the strength to change my own life in radical ways. Like, reading books was really helpful, but doing the coaching certification program gave me this like validation as a human, and like this just this strength to change my life. I ended up um ending my marriage and moving to California, and making some of the hardest and scariest decisions of my life during
Mm.
that program.
Mm.
Um, and I just was like, well, if I want to be a coach, I need to be living the life I want to be living, and I can't be holding off. You know, I guess it's there's this like, have we tried everything we can? Like, have I worked hard enough at this relationship or at this certain life path? Like, could I do more to make it better before I quote unquote give up on it? And at
Mm.
a certain point, like, you have to realize that like you're abandoning yourself if you don't give up on something that is unhealthy, or harmful to you in some way. So it's been a very validating and beautiful journey to like put myself first and like realize that the world doesn't crumble, but it actually builds from there. It's been really,
Mm-hmm.
really amazing and
Yes.
hard, but great.
And I think that's what I was gonna ask is like, how has it been putting yourself out there and transitioning to some level of entrepreneurship now?
Yeah. Yeah. My mother was an entrepreneur growing up, and she was always like, you got to be your own boss. And I think she's had a lot of patience with me as I have always had a boss for the last 10,
Mm.
20 years. Um, and there have been moments where I'm like, oh, I have to do this all by myself, and I have to like figure it all out on my own. And the
Mm.
truth is that every successful person has a team and has a village. And it's not that I need to have a team of people I hired, but as a coach, I also always have a coach, and I
Mm-hmm.
have mentors, and I have resources that I tap into to help me as an entrepreneur. It's so important to still have community in building a business. And I'm like, note to self right now. I'm like reminding myself, like, I have support to do
Mm-hmm.
this. Because it can be a scary road to do something new. But, I also remind myself, like, we're all doing this life thing for the first time. Isn't that wild to think? Like,
Mm.
everyone's doing this for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
You know, one of my favorite questions actually is, well, I have two, but I'll share one with you. Sometimes I ask, like, how many times do you think you've been here?
mm, right. Maybe
You
it's
know?
not the first time. There's
Yeah.
something beginner about life, but there's some, yeah, innate wisdom of like, oh, I am a leader. So
Mm-hmm.
how did that happen?
Mm-hmm.
Probably a few lifetimes ago, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, yeah, I think some of us are built to lead, and if you're anything like me, like you kind of have to go through this process of like, oh my gosh, am I really a leader? Like, am I really being tapped to lead? Oh my God, like, okay, here we go. Put on the
Yeah.
cape.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So stepping into that power that you probably have from other lifetimes.
Well,
Yeah.
where do you foresee this next endeavor for you? I'm curious of you, you know, you talked about how the importance of speaking it out there. So I'm curious of what's been planted in your heart for you to even have the courage to make the shift into coaching, but also what's the vision that has been planted in your heart that you want to see through?
Yeah. Um, I was watching a really inspiring series called Abstract, about artists, and this woman said, if you want to build big, you have to think small. And it's about
Hmm.
like really thinking about the cellular level of what you're doing. And so, your question really brings up like what's the next step? And and sometimes like I'm sort of pendulating between the film industry and coaching, and like when you're learning to swing on the swing, you're pumping a little higher each time, and you're like, look, it's not quite no hands yet. Um, so my program Pivot will open its doors in August, and yeah, it'll be the second go around. Um, so that's like the next big thing. And I will be ending my job on severance in August or like early September. So severance will end in August, and I will get to spend the rest of the year full time coaching. So that's like my immediate dream. And, I'm really seeing where this takes me and where I can take others. One of my clients started their own business and, went from like not being able to talk about it with anybody for fear of embarrassment to like starting the business and running with it. And it's amazing to see that transformation for people. So I really, I'm really excited to do another round of Pivot, which is like one-on-one coaching, and eventually doing it in groups and just getting to speak more and share my voice and help others share their voice. Like I was reading Audre Lorde one morning and she just had this line about like, if we don't speak, like we're gonna keep it inside and it's gonna like decay there or something. Like we have sometimes I just was always of the mindset like there's no point in talking if I don't know that somebody's definitely gonna listen, definitely gonna understand, and definitely gonna like do whatever it is that I need them to do with this information. And what I didn't realize is that like speaking is doing myself justice. If I have something to say, it's my responsibility to say it. It's my responsibility to myself, and I feel better after I say it. It's like digestion. It's important to say it no matter how it lands for the other person. Once it's out, it's not my responsibility how it lands for somebody else. If they love it, if they don't love it, that's not on me anymore. So it's just been a liberating time.
Yeah. So Janice, if people want to work with you, I guess I'm more curious also, like what kinds of folks do you find yourself loving to work with? And if they do want to work with you, how can they get in touch with you and figure out how to apply for the next round of Pivot?
Yeah, you can apply on my website at janisvogel.com, and I will be choosing 10 people to work with. I work with people building new businesses, people wanting to change careers or start new streams of income. Just I enjoy working with people who are hiding their gifts, and I help them stop doing that. And I help them share their gifts with the world. So yeah, I've worked with people across the board, really.
I love that. I love that. Any final thoughts or words of advice for yourself, or I don't even maybe even for your little one too, but just a last bow tie on all this.
Yeah, I really just appreciate this time to like be my full self here with you and hang out with you. And I just think it's like it's truly my definition of success to be my full authentic self, and I just want that for others. I think that when we heal ourselves one person at a time, we heal the world. So I'm really grateful that you just walked up to me like a human being and said hi. And I was like, hi, I like you. You know?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean,
Simplify.
maybe you're gonna have to try the strawberry tamale with me next time. Would you be down?
Oh, I would be so down. It's a date.
Okay. I think everyone's missing out on it. I really have to go find this business now because I'm gonna go get sponsored or something by them so that I can continue to sell their strawberry tamales. But Janice, thank you so much for being on the show. It was such a lovely time just being with you, getting to know you. Thankfully, I actually have some news for you.
Oh,
I'm moving up to Encinitas.
this is very exciting. Oh my gosh. You're gonna be my neighbor.
Yes.
We're gonna hang out.
Yes. So the strawberry tamale will be coming sooner than later. But of course, all the other questions I didn't get the chance to ask you will now get to be off camera and documented in our minds. So again, thank you so much for being on the show. And everyone else, thank you so much for tuning in to Connecting the Dots. Don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring episodes and join us next time as we continue to connect the dots with other leaders and visionaries who are making a difference. So until then, keep striving for your next breakthrough and embracing your potential. All right. Bye, y'all.